right, what's up, everyone? I wanted to thank everyone who's already seen my film, The People Who Suspend, and let you know that I am uploading the bonus content up to the website. Or up to the Vimeo page. It's very annoying that they won't allow me to just upload a separate audio track. So it looks like I'm uploading the entire film again with the audio commentary. Which, if you enjoyed the film, you already know the film is very dense. There's very little of the film where nothing's going on. It's very much hitting you very, very quickly, and there's a lot of details that I just had to leave out of the film that I didn't want to, obviously, but at the same time I can't make the film 4 hours long. So this audio commentary, literally, you're going to hear me just talking for an hour and a half about the film. So obviously, you need to have already seen the film before you watch it. But if you've purchased the film, you will have access to this. It's being uploaded now. So at the time that this video is being uploaded, that will be available on Vimeo. So be sure and check that out if you want to know more. It's definitely going to cast a lot of light on why I made the film the way I did. There were a lot of different ways I could make this film, and I tried a lot of them. I mean, believe it or not, in the beginning, I wasn't actually in it. Like, I was just always behind the camera, and I didn't really want to put myself in front of the camera because I didn't think I really had what was most interesting to say. And kind of what made me take on that more of the protagonist role of the film was because there was no way to tie everything together. Everything was happening in a way that felt like really very separate stories, like one after another. And you have to kind of segue between scenes, and that became a really useful moment for me to just narrate essentially what I had experienced, what I'd seen, who I'd met in between each of these things, and just kind of help lay down the perspective of how much I changed as a person throughout the process of making this film. So it's definitely it was a tremendous amount of work getting this to the point where it's at. I mean, those of you who backed the Kickstarter know it's been like 5 years. I mean, I was working on this before I even launched the Kickstarter. I was working on it for almost a year before that. And that was just planning, contacting people. I'm like, if I were to make this film, would you want to be a part of it? And once I had enough people say yes, I was like, all right, well, I'll do it. But I think, I think it's worthy to a worthy topic for me to explain just why I made this film, because like I'm not gonna make any money off of this, at least not I might make back more than what was spent making the film monetarily, but whenever you add it up, I have put thousands of hours of work into this film, thousands. That may be really hard to imagine. I'm not exaggerating. I have put thousands of hours into this film. A lot of that was because essentially I went through film school after shooting it. Figuratively speaking, film school through watching YouTube videos and talking to the few people that I do know who work in Hollywood or in film in some capacity. But yeah, like whenever you total up all those hours, I'm not getting paid for this. This wasn't like if I wanted to make money, I would have just released it. But as this went on, what began as like a long YouTube video, which was essentially my plan. My plan was, I get so many questions about suspension when anytime I mention it, and I'm tired of people asking me to sum up the meaning of suspension in just a few sentences. Like, people see or hear that I do this and they're like, give me a 2-sentence explanation for why you do this, and then I can move on with my life. Well, here's what I have to say to you guys who feel that. No. No. I will not try to sum this up in 2 sentences, because that would be disrespectful to all the people who practice it. Trying to, minimize it to that level of simplicity, because it's not a simple subject. I mean, if you see the film, this is not even slightly simple. There are very, very complex reasons for doing this. And to try to act as if I can explain what this means for everyone, it's out of the question. So I had to travel. I had to meet these people in person. I had to suspend with them to wrap my head around it. I mean, like all this stuff, all of these jumps and stuff that are essentially the last 20 minutes of the film, that was... I didn't know what to think about that. Like, I really didn't. Like, part of me was like, this is just like adrenaline, like extreme sports stuff. You're just turning suspension into an extreme sport. And then I thought maybe it was partially just to get attention. And what I found was, yeah, there are people who are doing this stuff to get attention. The free falls are a little bit different. There have been a good number of people, Stanislav told me, who got their hooks thrown. They flew out to wherever he was at. They got their hooks thrown. They stepped up to the edge and realized that all the reasons they had for doing this were not good enough to do it. And they turned around and asked to have their hooks taken back out. And at the time of making the film, he said there were about a dozen or so people who had been in that situation, who either just because of fear, they couldn't make themselves jump, or they just realized, oh, maybe being famous on YouTube isn't that big a deal. I mean, there's much, much easier ways to get people's attention. You don't have to really, really go through such an intense and consciousness shattering experience. So yeah, I mean, I wanted to, going forward, I wanted to be able to tell people who ask about this, I have answered all of your questions in this film. Watch it, and then if you still have questions on top of that, I'm happy to talk to you. But expecting me to give a stranger so much of my time trying to explain this, when really a lot of them are just looking to gawk and have this look of disgust and stuff, because if you try to sum it up in a couple sentences, it's gonna sound pretty fucking stupid, and that's why all these articles are garbage. I mean, I've been featured in many articles at this time, and I haven't been happy with any of them. Even the ones that are kind of good still suck. I mean, and it's because they're too brief. 100 or 97 minutes. That's pretty much the bare minimum amount of time required for me to get this across, and hopefully have people feel a little bit of what you feel when you suspend. I tried to really capture the fear that you feel from suspension, as well as the joy. I mean, and the transformation that takes place through suspension, because at the end I was a different person. I mean, that closing narration it's not really all that figurative. Those are literal statements. I was not the same person anymore. At the end of the film, at the end of shooting, it felt like I was handing over the hard drives of data to the person who, a different person. All right, now that my roommate has left, I felt like I was handing over the hard drives to a different person, and or being given them. Like, my new self was being given these hard drives by my former self and told, make a story out of this. And looking back at all of my original intentions, they became very insignificant and You know, they were too small. And then, whenever Fakir passed away, it became much more of an obsession because I knew that this could be the last big piece of information or big piece of content. These could be some of his final words that are widely disseminated. And I wanted to do that justice. Because like Fakir said, whenever I asked him, how do you think the outsiders are looking at the people who practice suspension? He said, as freaks, frankly, as freaks. And I knew he was going to say that. Whenever I asked that question, I was very much expecting that answer because that's how I look at it. And I didn't want to go forward and have everyone who knows that I do this think I'm a freak, or that there's something wrong with me. I mean, a freak can, you can embrace that term if you want. For me, it's too much of a generalization. So, if you want to sum up why I made this film, it's simply because I did not want what was happening to drift off into obscurity and be forgotten, because I don't know if suspension will always be what it is now. And really it didn't. Like how it was when I was making the film, that's largely past because of the extreme popularity that suspension had in the mid 2000s and up through really up until about the time that I completed the film and a few years afterward. It or finished shooting. It just, whenever you get a lot of notoriety for something, a lot of people are going to want that as well, and so they'll pretend. They'll pretend to be more woke than they are. I didn't want suspension to be looked at as a joke. 20 years from now, when people see photos of me suspending, even if I've moved on and I'm doing something else with my life and suspension isn't as big a part of my life at some time in the future, I didn't want this to be something that I had to explain. And I hope the People Who Suspend becomes that explanation that a lot of people can use. Even though my story is different from everyone's, but that's why I interviewed so many people. Give people a real view of how different we are. But the fact that even though we're so different, the bond that we create with each other through suspension is powerful. It's powerful, and it neutralizes those differences. They become less important. So anyway, I hope this film provides some of that benefit that I was seeking for myself from making the film. Anyway, thank you all for your support. If you haven't seen the film yet, you can go to thepeoplewhosuspend.com and check it out. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for sharing the film and your support and getting the DVDs and telling everyone about this. Talk to you guys later.